everybody. Welcome to Phil and Dave's Excellent Adventures. Just Dave here. Today I'm talking about the movie Civil War. This is going to be a spoiler review, so if you haven't seen the movie yet and you are concerned about spoilers, I would suggest you go and watch the movie first before you watch this review. So Civil War is a dystopian war film directed and written by Alex Garland. In the movie, a team of journalists travel across the United States during a rapidly escalating Second American Civil War, which has engulfed the nation. So as far as what I liked about the movie, overall the cast was great. Kirsten Dunst as Lee was awesome. I always like Kirsten Dunst. She's really, I think, created a really good career for herself, especially as she's gotten older, and I appreciate that. Wagner Moura as Joel, her friend, the journalist, is also really fun. I've seen him in stuff, but I don't remember what exactly. But yeah, I like the guy. He had a good performance, and Cailee Spaeny especially was great as Jessie. I didn't recognize her. She was the woman who played Priscilla in Priscilla, and yeah, she looks like a high schooler. So when they show her, I'm like, "Who's this high school girl?" And he's like, "Oh, she's 23," and I'm like, "Really?" And look, yeah, she's 25 now. She's probably 23 in the film, but yeah, she was really good in that, and she does a good job. I love Stephen McKinley Henderson. He's great in everything he's in. I think he was in Dune, the first one, and I liked him in that as well. Yeah, every time he shows up, I always like that guy a lot. Nick Offerman's great. Big fan of Nick Offerman. Haven't really seen him in anything live action in a while, but he does a lot of cartoon voices nowadays. Sonoya Mizuno as Anya. I liked her as well. Oh, and we got Jesse Plemons shows up too, which is great. Jesse Plemons is always great. I like him. Cinematography was really good in this. It was by Rob Hardy, who does all of Alex Garland's movies. He did Annihilation, Ex Machina, and Men. He also did the Mission Impossible Fallout and the Book of Clarence, which I like that movie, so that's cool. I like the music in this as well. It was done by Ben Salisbury and Jeff Barrow. Jeff Barrow is from Portishead. The two of them together do a lot of soundtracks together, mostly, again, all of Alex Garland's movies. So Annihilation, Ex Machina, Men. They also did the movie Free Fire, though. So, all right, yeah, cool sound, cool score in this, and I really like the soundtrack as well. There's a lot of cool stuff in here for the soundtrack. There's Love Fingers by Silver Apple, Sweet Little Sister by Skid Row, Say No Go by De La Soul, Breakers Roar by Sturgill Simpson, and then they have two suicide songs in here, Rocket USA and Dream Baby Dream, which, yeah, cool soundtrack. I really like a lot of the songs. I didn't necessarily know a lot of them beforehand, De La Soul and the Suicide songs I did, but yeah, cool stuff. I appreciate they weren't like super popular songs you hear all the time. They didn't play like, Buffalo Springfield for What It's Worth or something like that, which is more of a Vietnam thing. You know what I mean? And I think overall the story was interesting. It was a good idea. It's a really cool, interesting premise of, what if we had a sort of dictator type president who was in a third term, another civil war broke out. It's a really good, really interesting idea. I really like some of the themes and sort of I think it's a really good time for the story to be told because it makes sense. We just had a president in office who kind of did try to become a dictator. So and he's running again. So I'm talking about Trump, just to be clear here. So yeah, I mean it's very possible, and so I think it was a good time to do it. Although the movie isn't a direct comparison to current times, and I did kind of like that. It wasn't like a North and South thing or Republican and Democrat thing. It was more like it was Texas and California had started like the Western forces. I think Florida had its own thing going on maybe, and then there was like the rest of the United States and maybe another faction. I'm not exactly sure. But yeah, and I guess I did kind of like that. And I did like the action scenes. There's a couple really cool, really interesting action scenes here of different attacks or fights or when they're storming the White House toward the end. All of that stuff was really good and really effective and I think really well done. As far as what I disliked about the movie, though, I think probably the worst thing about this movie for me would be the sound mixing. I think it probably had the worst sound mixing I've ever. With just with the fact that it was both like the loudest and the quietest movie I've ever seen. They would do this thing where it'd be a very, very loud explosion, an extremely loud explosion, which makes sense. Explosions are very loud. I understand that guns are very loud. So when they do that in movies, I understand. I actually sort of even appreciate if they make them a little louder than you think they should be because they are very, very loud in real life. But then they do the thing where, okay, loud explosion, and then it's like super quiet. And then it's like quiet for like a really, really, really long time. Like, but I get it. It's effective. It works. It is what it's like to be in a loud explosion. I understand why they do it. But I even heard a woman in the audience go, "Oh my God, that was so loud." And again, I don't mind the explosions and the gunshots being loud. They should be loud. That makes sense. But the music in this movie is just insanely loud. Every song that comes on just comes on at full on 100% volume. And like the rest of the movie isn't that loud. So all of a sudden you just got this music coming on. I ran through the same thing with Monkey Man, where it's just like, I feel like I'm on the verge of a panic attack because the music is so fucking loud. I don't know if this is a choice of the director or the music supervisor, or if it's an issue with the theater, because, Theater I'm in is a nice enough one, but it's 20 years old. Maybe their sound system hasn't updated, but it is so frustrating to deal with. And it keeps happening, and people keep complaining about it, and people keep not doing anything about it. So I understand. I understand that in a movie, there's supposed to be dynamics. I understand that you can use that sort of loud noises to kind of build up the tension, to put you on edge. But I think this movie overdid it, and it was just way too. If you would have just turned the volume down like 10% on the music alone, I would be happy. But like Jesus, every time a song came in, it was like traumatic for me. There's not enough Jesse Plemons. They show him in the trailer, and then he shows up for like one scene, and that's it. So I'm like, okay, that's cool. I feel like I don't know if it's the pacing that I had an issue with necessarily, but there was definitely some slow parts in the movie, some parts in the kind of the middle there where I got a little bored. There's some questionable CGI, especially with like the helicopters flying in. There's one scene with a bunch of helicopters where I feel like they just copy and pasted the same helicopter a bunch of times. I might be wrong. It was a quick scene. Most of the CGI is pretty good, but there was a couple that looked a little questionable. The movie's a relatively low budget movie, so I can forgive him for that, I think. But really, it's not what was sold in the trailers either. I feel like the trailers kind of sold it as this like summer blockbuster type movie, like an Independence Day or something like that. And I wasn't expecting that because I know A24 and I know Alex Garland, so I kind of know the kind of movies they make. But I feel like some people were justifiably upset and thinking like, hey, man, I was expecting this action-packed, kind of thriller. Instead, it's this kind of quiet, meditative movie about war journalism. I feel like also the movie, as much as I mostly agree with what it's saying, and I understand what it's saying, I think, I don't think it's saying anything that's really hasn't been said before. It's this sort of like, war is bad. I get it. War journalism is a tough job. I assumed it was. If you have a job like that, that's very difficult and deals with you having to confront your humanity frequently, you are going to lose some of yourself. Yes. I mean, Nietzsche said that 200 years ago, man. You stare into the abyss, you become it or whatever, right? Like this is nothing here is really that new. And I liked Jesse's sort of character arc. It was a little predictable, but it felt a little rushed to me too. Like, they had the whole thing where she's like, oh, she asked Lee, oh, if I died, would you shoot my body? And she's like, well, what do you think? And then, at the end, you see, again, spoilers here, you see Lee gets shot, saving her basically. And then Jesse like just takes pictures of her and then basically just runs away, looks back for a second, and then just runs away to go get the picture of the president before he gets murdered. I think they shot him, right? Yeah. Either way, again, I see where it's going. I understand it. I understand the point they're trying to make here, but it's just I feel like I've seen it before. It wasn't really anything different. And the movie is, I feel, a little pretentious. And I feel like the same thing with Alex Garland's last movie, Men, just very, very pretentious, that one. Yeah, it seems like the movie has a very high opinion of itself. And it's like, okay, cool, but you're not that big of a deal, man. And it's a lot of the stuff is very, very surface level or superficial. And I think it's part of the issue is too, they didn't really explain exactly what the conflict was. I mean, obviously we understand this is a dictator type president who is taking a third term, which, is not allowed by the Constitution. But yeah, just exactly what the conflict was, what the sides were, what the division was, stuff like that. There's not a lot of plot development. And I feel like it really didn't live up to the potential because it's a really good idea. And I think it's even something that could have really been fleshed out more in like a TV series. And I feel like I say this a lot, but this is definitely something where like, this is the world that you've created that is interesting and that it would be interesting to watch. It would be cool to watch these characters go on their journey throughout 7-8 hours, and then you can watch as the Jesse character slowly starts to lose her humanity little by little, as opposed to this kind of rushed plot development that I feel like we got. And even though I think it's a well-made movie, I don't really think it's something I'd really want to watch again, at least not right away. So other than that, movie is directed by Alex Garland. He did Annihilation, Ex Machina, Men. He also maybe directed Dread. I've heard a lot of people say he kind of directed Dread because he wrote that movie. It's written by Alex Garland. He also wrote Dread, 28 Days Later, and he wrote the novel The Beach, which was made into a movie with Leonardo DiCaprio. Budget on this, $50 million. So far, it's made about $25 million. So, I mean, it might make its money back. I think that was a record opening for A24, though, so they're happy. And I know they've talked about wanting to get into more big budget, kind of higher profile movies. I kind of don't want them to because I kind of like what they've been doing. They were hit or miss for me for a while there, but I enjoyed that they're this kind of indie house releasing these kind of different movies. And now it seems like they're just kind of trying to join the corporate kind of machinery. But Rotten Tomatoes on this, a lot of the critics seem to really like it. 83% for the critics, 77% for the audience. So mostly in agreement there. From what I saw from the audiences, the ones who didn't like it just thought it was a little too slow or boring or wasn't what they were promised in the trailers, which again, I kind of understand. So as far as scoring this one, I think I'm gonna go with a 7 out of 10. I think it's fine. I think it's a good movie. I think it's a well-made movie. It's definitely better than something I can do. But I just, personally, I didn't really love it that much, or at least not as much as I wanted to. So, but if you saw the movie, let me know what you thought of it down in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you have a great night. I will see you here again next week.